Hello everyone, my name is Joanna Pixel, but you can just call me Jo for short, and I am a VTuber, live streamer, and model artist as well as rig artist. And I've just been, really thinking and thonking about Live 2D and about models, and I kind of decided that I really wanted to start making some Live 2D tutorials for everyone. I get a lot of questions always in my chat when I say that I rigged my model, or if I'm doing a rigging stream, just people asking a bunch of different questions. So I kind of wanted to, throw myself into the ring of Live 2D tutorials. I've been rigging for about 2 years now. Definitely I am not the best rig artist by any means. I'm still getting used to the whole VTuber model style in general, but I really wanted to add my 2 cents into this and try to give you guys some of the information that I've learned over time. I'm not going to be going into design or drawing for a VTuber model because honestly, I don't think I'm that good at the drawing part of it. I'm decent at the design part, so if that is something that you guys want to see at some point, just let me know, and I definitely will do it because I'm always designing little models for God knows what reason. But yeah, in this tutorial I basically just go into a little bit of the final PSD setup and the start of the Live 2D setup, and then we're gonna go into the eye rig in the next one, and like the face rig and mouth and all that kind of fun stuff. I love this model. I started making it about a year ago and I finished it up in about, I think, December, and it's absolutely my favorite model that I've made so far, but I do have some issues with it that I wanted to fix, and I was originally just gonna pop my new art onto my rig, but it did not work. So I was like, you know what, okay, I want to fix up stuff on the rig anyways, and if I'm gonna be re-rigging my entire freaking model, you best believe I'm making it into some tutorials. I will just quick disclaimer, I'm gonna give a quick disclaimer. I am a serial yapper. I talk way too much, and sometimes God knows what I'm talking about because I don't. I just started filming this intro as soon as I was done editing the main video, and the amount of times that I was listening to myself and I'm just like, I'm either like, girl, if you don't shut up, or what on earth are you saying? Because I don't know. So you will see some little sticky notes throughout this video, kind of on the screen, as well as some more obvious, oh wow, I said the wrong thing or completely forgot this very important point. So please read those, and I hope everything is as clear, as concise as I could make it. But if you guys have any further questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm gonna throw you into sleepy yesterday morning at 9 a.m. me, so enjoy. So this is my model file fully in Photoshop. I did a bunch of brush up work on it, adding some toggles, adding some stuff, and you can see it kind of looks like a mess. So now I am going to go ahead and shrink this a little bit because I think I made this a little too big. So I'm just going to go to image size, and yeah, I made it 6,000 by 8,000. I'm gonna bring this down something like this. And this should hopefully speed things up a little bit, but doesn't really affect the resolution too much, while giving me a much better resolution size, because I was export it smaller anyways, but I was noticing that I was having a lot of Live 2D lag. And then I'm also just gonna go into canvas size, and we're gonna swap this to pixels, and I do have a lot of free space on the edges, so I'm gonna cut this down to 250. I think that should be okay. Oh, I could probably go down to 4,000. I'm just trying to cut out some of the extra space, and I think that this should be right on the center of the canvas. So I'm just gonna go ahead and plop in, just to be sure. I'm gonna go back to view, guides, new guide, and we're gonna do 2000 px. This looks pretty good. Well, I'm actually gonna have to, so I'm gonna have to double check that in Live 2D. So I'm just gonna save this, and I'm gonna go through the layers in a second. This is just because I want to make sure that this is even. And now just to test it, I'm gonna toggle off the glasses and just grab this eyeline top R, and we are going to reflect horizontally. It should line up pretty well. Yeah, it's not bad. So in terms of the dividing, of items. I have a lot of different layers on here that you're probably going to be confused about. First thing that you'll notice is that everything is labeled with its own names with underscores. Live2D doesn't accept spaces or hyphens. It only accepts underscores. So make sure that you're labeling stuff with your underscores. I have my previews pretty large here, so then you could hopefully see a little bit of what's going on. But yeah, I just have a ton of layers. They're all divided into their own groups and folders. I'll go through this more in Live2D, but just to go over some of the basic separation, we're gonna go over one of the eyeballs. This will be much easier for you to look at, and I'll toggle off the tiers as well. So here you can see just one of my eyes. This is going to be the right eye right here. So you can see I have a folder labeled IR. So all of the separate pieces that you can see. So I've got my lashes all labeled. So lash AR, lash BR, and lash CR. And then I have my lash line top right here. And then I have my lash line side R and my lash line bottom R. I've got my eye white right here. The little eyelid line. If I can find it, the eyeshadow right there. And then I have my little highlight shines, my heart pupil and my star pupil. Heart pupil is for a toggle. And then I have some iris light, some more iris highlights, the iris as well as an iris shade layer. And then I also have a reflection light and the basic eye white that everything gets clipped to. So when that gets all put together, bam, eyeball. So you really just want to make sure that you're dividing everything based off of how you want to move it. A big thing that I do suggest doing is making underfill layers, which is basically an entire layer that's just a copy of your main layer, but it just goes with a slight stroke. The easiest way I find to make an underfill layer is to grab whatever your layer is, and I just alt drag it underneath it. If you don't have Photoshop, it may be a little different. And then I go up to the layers panel, which I don't know if you can see. Yes, you can. Layers panel, layer style, and stroke. And I set this usually to like 5 or 6, and then hit OK. And then I right click on that new layer and just hit raster size layer. And I lock the transparency, grab whatever color I want for the shadow, line, whatever. And then I go to a brush and I would just fill in this entire layer. And then I would relabel it face base underfill. And that's all it is. It's pretty easy. The next thing that you'll see is that I have these massive pink layers as well as this like big gray box here. These are all because Live2D gives you some extra abilities that most drawing programs don't. So you'll also notice that I have like, these are not properly clipped yet. In Live2D you can clip a layer to multiple layers even if they're not next to each other. And you can also do what's called an inverse clipping mask. So these are to go over these marks to essentially help bring them away. So you can set the opacity to 0 on a layer and it'll still clip tab whatever that layer is filled with. So knowing little tricks like that is definitely gonna make your rig look terrifying before you load it in, but I could turn off everything like that and make it still look decent. So I'm just gonna make sure all of my layers are visible. This is just gonna make it easier for when we put everything in. Control save. I've already made sure that the model is centered on the image. Now this file does have 447 layers, which is kind of a lot, but you know. All right, so when that's all done, I'm just gonna go ahead and locate my PSD file, and I'm just gonna drag and drop it straight into Live2D. Now I like to load this at a full scale preview. This won't affect the final output of your model, so if you're having issues, you could change this, but I'm gonna just hit OK. If you have another file open, you're gonna have to select create new model. So you'll see things are even messier now because my clipping masks didn't copy over from Photoshop. So we still have a lot of work to do. The very first step I'm gonna suggest that you do as soon as you have your model in is we want to make our texture atlas pretty early on. So I'm just gonna select every single layer and you'll see that everything has these wide bounding boxes on them, which is not what we want, because then that means it's going to place everything with a ton of open space on our texture atlas, and it's just going to take up a lot of room. So for the initial texture atlas, I like to go into auto mesh and standard deformation. Give it a second. This is a hefty file, so it's going to take a second. And now you're going to get this terror right here, but this is good because this means you can see there's a lot less open space where the texture atlas would be. So now you're just gonna go up here and click on this edit texture atlas button, and I'm gonna select, for this model, I think I already know I need the biggest, but I'm gonna go ahead and select 8000 by 8000. If you're having a smaller model, you can pick less. Like I tend to go like 8000 by 4000 or something like that for a full body when it's slightly less high quality. But I really do suggest just messing with it. Okay, it worked out because I actually missed something, but this is what I wanted to show you guys, where you may need to select a larger texture atlas file. So you can see these all had no space to be placed. So I'm just gonna hit cancel on this, and I'm gonna cancel that. We're gonna go back, edit texture atlas, and I'm gonna select higher level. Keep in mind that if you're using the free version of Live2D, I think it caps you at the 4096 by 4096, and it caps you for a lot of different things. So if you're using the free version, which I recommend doing before you take your free trial, I recommend taking your free trial once you've learned things a little bit, or just pay for a month. But the free trial is like 43 days, I think, which is enough time to rig a full body model. So I do suggest waiting. In terms of the other settings that I missed, you're gonna make sure that this is set to all model images and set automatic layout. I like to have my 50 pixel margin between the different textures. Do your layout target as mesh, and then you're gonna have it set to, this is the really important thing, these two are the really important. Specify user 100%, not set automatically. This, if you ever have errors where one piece of your model looks lower quality and lower textured than another piece, that's because you don't have this specify user on, and then you're gonna hit allow rotations on, hit OK, and hit OK. And this is gonna load it in. And it looks like I actually have the perfect size texture atlas right here. So you really want as little white space as possible. This is just gonna help your model run better. I have nothing appearing in this section here, and you can see everything is placed at the right size. So I'm just gonna hit OK. And now I have to wait more. All right, the waiting is over. My texture atlas is fully set up. If you ever do have an error or an issue, Live2D does autosave files for you. So if you go into this help window right here, you can find open auto backup folder, and you'll see that I have these backups already loading in. Unfortunately, we still have a lot to do before we're ready to rig. And the first thing that I like to do is I go over to this part project menu in the corner over here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and start clipping everything. So the way Live2D clipping works is it actually uses the ID of whatever you're trying to clip it to. So I'm going to use this tablet here as an example, because essentially this is supposed to block off this center piece so then I can close this in. So I'm going to select the tablet clip layer. If you name it properly and you don't have any duplicate names, your clipping ID should just be the same as your name. So you can see this is just tablet underscore clip. So I'm just going to click that once and then Control C, and then I'm going to click on whatever I need to clip to that, which is going to be the tablet top bottom and the tablet screen. I think the rest of it should be fine. Make sure that you're shift clicking. It makes things much faster. If you need to grab, say, a layer that's a little bit above, you can hold down Control and then click. But I'm just gonna go ahead and select the layers that I need and then go into this clipping ID box and Control V, enter, and then it would clip it. Now this is what's called a inverted clipping mask. So you'll see this little button right here that says invert mask, and I'm just gonna check that off. This basically means that anytime this layer comes over these, it's gonna clip it away, which we can't really tell right now. But Live2D also functions where clipping masks can still be active when a layer is at 0% opacity, and we don't want this clip layer to be seen. Any sort of an inverse clip layer you don't want to be seen. So I'm gonna turn the opacity down to 0, and then you'll see when I move it over, see how it makes whatever I clip to it disappear. And now we just go through and clip everything. So glasses, I'm gonna grab the lenses and we're gonna clip the highlights to them. And the frames, we're gonna clip this shine to them. Then I do have to change the opacities. I'm gonna bring these down a little bit and set this to an additive layer. For some reason, it doesn't hold additive layers in from Photoshop, even though linear dodge is add or whatever, it doesn't translate properly. Just keep in mind that you only have add and multiply layers. This right here is the hair clip layer. So you can see when I look up and down, see how the shine moves along it? This is done pretty simply by having just a additive layer that's clipped to the right layers. So this is going to be clipped to a bunch of different layers. So if you go to this clipping ID box and you just click this little drop down menu right here, you can just check box whatever you need to clip to. This helps if you're working on a lot, like if something needs to get clipped to a lot of layers. So here I'm just going to go and select everything labeled light. And again, this is why labeling is important. You're going to be able to more easily find what you need. And that should be everything. And then you can just click out of it. And now I can see this is just clipped to all of those layers. Also, just keep in mind that your Live 2D layout might be different than mine. I don't remember what the default layout is. This is just what I do. I actually normally have deformer up at the top and then log underneath deformer like this, but for the purposes of recording, I moved log off to the side so then you could see the deformers menu more easily, and I also really don't need the log. But yeah, I try my best to make it as easily visible for you guys, but there's no way I'm not going to use my full ultra wide monitor because it is so nice. If you have an ultra wide for Live 2D, it's fantastic. So I just need to go through and basically keep clipping all of my layers. A major one is the eyes. I have this eye white layer and I'm going to clip the iris, all of the highlights, basically anything that's on the inside of the eye, all of this, clip that to the eye white. This makes the rig a lot easier. There are many different ways to do an eye rig, but this is just the way I like to do it, and it's, in my opinion, the best way to do it, so that's why I suggest this. For the mouth, you're always going to grab the very inside mouth back and clip everything to it. Again, this is just a rigging technique. Now I am going to show you guys how I do something pretty cool. So there is the mark with like the sparkle effect on here. So I have 4 layers basically set up. So I've got the face mark base itself here, which is on a multiply layer. I have the face mark clip, which has like all the stars on it. I have a face mark shine, which is just a crap ton of dots. And then I have this inverse clip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this inverse clip, I'm going to copy that ID, and I'm going to paste it onto the mark and then invert the mask. And we can just set this to 0% opacity. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab this face mark clip. I'm going to copy that ID. This is how you do like a sparkle effect. Now I like to set this to 50% opacity. You can do whatever you want. Like I said, it's not going to affect the clip. And then you're just going to clip the shine to that. And I like to set this to an additive layer. And then you can see when I move this around, you got kind of a sparkly, shiny stars effect. It's pretty cool. And now I think I'm done with the clipping. What is this? What did I do? This is the texture. All right. So you'll see right here that this fun situation happened. If we go into our texture atlas, you'll see why. Bing, bam, boom. Did this just not have a good spot? I'm gonna make a good spot. All right, so if something like this happens, I'm just gonna maneuver things, and this should have its room. And now I just need to save it. It looks like the torso mark didn't get meshed properly. That should fix it. Beautiful. I'm gonna go back to torso mark clip. I just think it's not closed. Auto mesh. Yep, that's better. Okay. So now to continue on, we're gonna do a very, very unnecessary step. And that step is color coding my layers. When you have a file with this many layers, I like to color code things, at least a little bit. So like, especially something like this, here I have my star jelly. I'm gonna make this its own color because it's its own item. So I'm just gonna grab this Heart, it's called. It's a folder. And I'm gonna right click it, go to label color, and I like to do advanced settings because I like to make it match my model, and I'm just gonna drag this to something that makes sense. So a star makes sense. And same thing with the tablet, label color, advanced settings, and I just grab this little eyedropper. You have to click and hold and drag it and just hit OK. It just makes this easier to look at and easier to find things. Okay, so this is a little bit easier to look at. You can kind of see what everything is. Like I said, this is totally unnecessary and extra, and you really don't need to do this, but I just find it makes my life a lot easier when I'm hunting in a file with this many layers in it. And you can see this is going to show up on both sides, which is really nice. Next thing to do would be parameters. There's a lot of different ways to do your parameters. I'm going to go over my general parameters list. I'll see if I can link below maybe like a downloadable file or like a Ko-fi pay to use file of my standard parameters. But if you are going to be importing parameters, you're going to have to go up to modeling and bulk setting of model parameters and import. And then check delete all existing parameters before performing. And then you just select it and open and then hit OK. So we're going to do this from scratch though. So what I would do is first I like to move body XYZ all the way up to the top if this wants to move. And then I'm just going to create a new folder and select this, label it inputs. I like to do brackets and full caps, and then you could right click label color and set this to a color. Just like that. And then I would just select all of these and paste them in just like that. So I'm going to create another new folder, and we're going to do, this is going to be angle phys. So I like to do kind of what people call augmented physics. Excuse me? Why is my mouth doing this? Okay, I think I'm all right. Fine, okay. So I like to do what's called augmented physics, which basically means the head angles are going to kind of bounce a bit in place, but it just helps the angles be less aggressive. So for this, I'm just going to grab XYZ. I don't do this on the body, you can, and I'm just going to replicate parameters, and then I'm going to drag these down into angle physics, and then we're going to edit parameter, and I'm just going to write phys, and I'm going to change this to phys. So you can feel free to organize these however you see fit, whatever works best for your workflow. Definitely make sure that you're labeling them and coloring them. Folders are going to help so much with organization. I'm going to create a new folder, and this is going to be eyes, and I'm just going to grab all of these, paste them in, and then I'm going to create another new folder, and this is going to be labeled eye physics. But then for this, we're going to create some new parameters. So I'm going to create new, and we're going to name this lash phys x param lash phys x, and we're going to do this a minimum 10, maximum 10, default 0, just like that. And I'm going to replicate parameter, edit, and just change this X to a Y. And then I'm going to replicate, edit parameter, and this is going to be we'll do iris phys x, and then replicate, and again, we're switching the X to a Y, and then we're gonna do two more, edit parameter, eye shine phys x, and replicate, and just change the X to a Y. So then next folder is gonna be browse. And then I'm just gonna drag in all of these, but I like to redo some of these. So first off, I'm gonna delete the two brow axes because I don't use them on most models. It's kind of just like a tracking parameter to figure out how far out your eyebrows can go, but I don't really care, so. And then I like to reorganize this because I don't like how these are laid out, but I'll just grab all of these. So yeah, I don't like it being L, R, L, R, L, R, so I'm just gonna drag these into position, So it should be LY angle and form. I messed this up. LY angle and form. RY angle and form. Beautiful. And then we're gonna do the mouth, but this is gonna be completely redone because of VBridger. Here, I'll create my mouth folder. Let's do that. And then we're gonna create a new parameter, and this is gonna be mouth funnel. And we're gonna set this to a minimum of 0, maximum of 1, blend shape on, hit OK. Doing these from scratch is kind of infuriating. I'd highly recommend making a standard file to just load these in from, so you don't have to do it all the time. And then I also like to rename this cheek parameter to blush. I leave it the ID as is, and then I just drag this in there as well. I'm gonna create a new folder, and I'm gonna label this expressions. And then this is gonna have face darken, and this is just a 0, 1 parameter. If you're wondering, angry, mark, disappointed, mark, crying, and heart eyes. That should be it for the expressions. And then I'm gonna create a new folder. There's so many. And this is gonna be toggles. And then a new parameter. These are all gonna be 0, 1 again. And I'm just gonna make the basic glasses, jacket, and alien. I'm gonna relabel these to toggle. So yeah, this would be like any sort of closed toggles, not necessarily expression toggles. I like to separate those out, but that's just me. And then yet another folder. And this is gonna be animations, but that's just kind of for general animations, which actually breath can go in there. Oh, and you know what? Under physics, I'm gonna add, or under mouth, I'm gonna add the physics, which I think I'm just gonna keep in one big folder. I normally divide it out more, but honestly, I can't be asked. I'm just gonna move these guys into the physics folder. We are gonna completely replace those, but they're there for now. I'm going to create 2 more folders. And this is gonna be my Star Jelly folder and my drawing tablet folder, because they're a little bit more complex. And those we're not gonna worry about right now. This should be a decent parameter setup. We're gonna add parameters as we go. It's a little bit of a mess, but hopefully that'll work. I was gonna add in the arms and stuff, but I think I'm just gonna animate them directly into their toggles. So that's all of those. So I'm gonna save. So our file is looking a whole lot cleaner now. For all the color picking I did, you could just rainbow it, but I like picking from the model because then it just looks easier on the eyes. It matches everything. I like the aesthetic of it. The next step is going to be the deformer hierarchy. So if you don't know what this is, I'm going to give a little brief explanation on the deformer hierarchy. So essentially, you can create in Live 2D. I'm not doing too much for beginner explanations, but this is very important. So you can create what are called warp deformers and rotation deformers. And essentially these, imagine that they're like folders where you can adjust one thing. So we're gonna go over the meshes later more so, but I can go ahead and select this mesh on its own, and I can pull these points to go wherever I want to adjust it. But that's not going to adjust anything underneath. So say I want to adjust the whole body, just like the whole body of the Star Jelly, I would grab all of those and I would create a deformer. I'm just going to not label it right now. And then I can move it all in tandem at once. This is very, very important because when you rig on deformers, it tends to be easy to swap out art and to fix things, and things just function better because they won't overlap with each other. Just trust deformers are your best friend. So the problem with them though is that if I were to say, want to create that body deformer of just the Star Jelly body. So I'm just going to do this, create warp deformer. And we're just gonna label this, I am gonna label this for this, Star Jelly body. And I create this. And then let's say I wanna make one for the entire Star Jelly. So I go in and I select all of this and I go to create a warp deformer. It's not gonna let me because now what I would have to do is I would have to grab this Star Jelly body, and then I would have to select all of the extra pieces and create a warp deformer this way. And then it'll work, because you could see the Star Jelly body is a separate deformer that is a child element of the major Star Jelly warp deformer. So you can technically add deformers later, but as your deformers get more and more complex, they're gonna get very confusing and you're gonna have a hard time creating them. So that's why I like to create all of my deformers right at the start for my main parts, and then from there I don't rig on those deformers typically. I tend to rig on then child deformers of those major deformers. Sometimes I'll rig directly on them, but I try to avoid it just in case if I need to make a new child element, or if I've rigged on a child element and I need to rig on a parent element, I could just grab that parent element and go for it. So it's very important. You aren't gonna know just how important it is until something goes wrong because of your warp deformers. So I like to make as many as I can right from the start, but I can always split them up later. So first thing, because I would normally go in and just select absolutely everything and make a deformer for this, but because I have some elements that are separate and I want to keep separate from my model, I'm gonna actually make deformers for those first. So I'm gonna grab all of these Star Jellies, create a warp deformer, and this is just gonna be my Star Jelly warp deformer. This is probably gonna be what I use to toggle the opacity on and off. Same thing with my tablet. So then I'm gonna go and I'm just gonna collapse these three in this deformers menu. And now we're just gonna select everything. So I'm gonna go from the top all the way down to the bottom, shift click to select the whole body. And we're gonna create a deformer called full body. And now I can move just my entire body of my model. But now we still have to divide it up a little bit more. So I'm gonna do the upper body, which is the next thing that I like to do. So I like to go from the top all the way to the bottom and shift click, and then I'm gonna control click off anything that is not in that upper body, which is essentially just anything above the hips. But because I have a significant more amount of upper layers, I like to do it this way. So I'm just gonna scroll until I find the legs, and I'm just gonna control click these off. So any of these legs. And this is where my color labeling is really nice because I can clearly see, okay, I'm going to be clicking all of these off all the way up to the pink, and oh, okay, here's the blue, this is the other leg, so I'm going to click all of these off. It just helps to make sure that you don't accidentally miss a layer. This is only something I started doing recently, but it really does help. I'm just going to deselect all the shorts as well, and this should be everything. So now we should only have upper layers. I think I'm all right there. I'm just going to quick scroll through and double check, but you could even tell from the points that I've grabbed that there's nothing underneath. So I'm going to create a warp deformer, and this is going to be upper body. Create. And now I'm just going to grab everything that I missed, and I'm going to create a lower body deformer. This isn't really necessary. I just like it because there are rare instances where I need it. And when I need it and I don't have it, it sucks because then I'm having to go and select everything by hand. I'm going to go ahead and start selecting everything for the head specifically. So I'm going to scroll all the way up, and we're going to grab from here all the way down to here. And then I'm going to scroll a little further, and I should have the hair back right here that I'm just going to select these little layers and create a new warp deformer, and this is going to be head. And now within that, I'm going to divide this up more. I'm going to select all of the hair layers, and I'm going to create a hair deformer. This will be good if you want to make a bald toggle, which I will say this is a pretty dang clean bald head, so I might create a bald toggle. And we're just gonna warp deformer hair. Now I do suggest, if you're new to this especially, just grab this and move it and make sure that it looks right. Look at that bald head. Just make sure that you're actually getting all of the parts. It's better to check while you're in the middle of it before you accidentally put something into another deformer that you didn't mean to. Alright, so we're just gonna go back to the head, and I like to divide all of this out first. I'm gonna make one for the glasses, expression marks, and now I'm actually gonna separate the tears in with the eyes. Just trust, it'll make it easier. So I'm gonna select both these eyes. I do both first, and then I'll separate these out by IR and IL. Okay, so I'm just gonna grab all of the right eye, which If you haven't noticed already, I should have mentioned this earlier. Right is left and left is right. It's the model's right, your left. Okay, create IR, and we're gonna create IL. Ears, I'm gonna do both ears, and then I'm gonna do left and right. Ear L, ear R, and then antenna are next. Antenna L, and antenna R. Since the brows are one layer, I'm just gonna make one brow deformer for both of them. And then I can add deformers later because it won't get too confusing. And then I'm gonna do the whole mouth, and then I'm gonna do the inside mouth. And I'm just gonna do the face base. Oh wait, nose, I missed that. Nose, planet, face base, face mark. All right, so that should be the whole head for now. I'll divide things further later. But now we want to go all the way back up to the top, and I'm going to start dividing these. So jacket, torso goes first, which I grab all of this, and I grab all the way towards the bottom. I should have this one little layer here. And we're going to do shirt, and we're going to do just regular torso. And then we're going to do arm L and arm R. I'm just going to do the sleeves. I'll worry about the rest later. We're gonna go to the lower body, wherever the hell it ended up, which is down here. And we're gonna do shorts and hips. And then we're gonna do right leg and left leg. All right, so now I should have enough general deformers to make this make sense. And that should be it for a model setup, I believe. We are going to be creating more deformers as we go, but those are kind of the major deformers that I like to make, just so then I can keep popping stuff underneath them. But you should have a very nice, clean deformer hierarchy now. Looks very nice and clean. That's what we want. So deformers definitely do take a bit of getting used to, but just think about what you would possibly want to move in a group and group it. And then you can make smaller ones later, but for now, that's what we want. So that's basically it for the model setup. After this, you're gonna be all good to start rigging, which we're gonna get into later. But yeah, that's pretty much my model setup tutorial. Next, I'm probably gonna work on the eyes because I like working on the eyes first. Like I said, each model is very, very different. So you may have different parameters, you may have different deformers, you may have different layers, all that kind of stuff. But this is general setup for a model, so hopefully this was helpful to a certain degree. So yeah, I'm gonna work on the eyes next, and we're just gonna keep going through this. I'm really excited. I redesigned my model a little bit and it got too complex, so I was like, I'm gonna make a tutorial out of it. So that's what we're doing. So you guys are gonna follow me along in the rig process. Oh, good luck out there. Thank y'all.